Hello everyone, I am Vaishali Gabani from India. My presentation title is Does physical activity and stress level impacts heart rate variability in office workers? Let me introduce some of the abbreviation before starting of the introduction. PA, PSS, HRV, RMSST, SDNN, LFHF ratio, MET, PNS and SNS. So starting with the introduction, physical activity is one of the factors that protects against the stress. Compared to the other occupations, office workers, which are my study population, have a higher chance of being physically inactive at work and they do not typically engage in compensatory behavior outside of the work. It is significant to point out that lower levels of physical activity at work have been connected to the greater level of health stress. A significant risk factors are cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, and poor diet. The benefit of physical activity may extend to psychological and mental health. People who are in good mental health can function independently with the managing daily stress. On the other side, the mental health issue have a detrimental effect on social interaction, employment, and quality of life. Stress is considered to be the silent disease of 21st century. Stress does not have a single cause. In addition to relationships, families, or academic commitments, mental illness, including burnout, stress, post traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression, can also appear in the healthcare workplaces. Over the past 2 decades, the psychological concept of perceived stress has received lots of attention. According to the some researches, PSS, that is perceived stress score, measurement of perceived work-related stress has a bigger impact on workers' quality of life. Heart rate variability is one of the key indicators of autonomic process, has a negative correlation with cardiovascular risk factors such as physical inactivity. Heart rate variability is very useful in studying the cardiovascular responses to stress on the body. Right amount of hormone release and balance of autonomic nervous system determines person's physical and mental wellness. Any underlying cardiometabolic disorder changes the course of body's normal cardiac autonomic functioning, which has a consequences for the health. Heart rate variability assessment is recognized as a easy, non-invasive, and reliable method to assess cardiac autonomic function. It has been hypothesized that reduced HRV is related to more stress. Purpose. The purpose of this study was to determine how physical activity levels and stress correlated with heart rate variability. Methodology. The study was a cross-sectional survey design. Total 60 participants were randomly selected from 2 office units of Surat, Gujarat, India. Inclusion criteria were office workers of both the gender, age gap between 30 to 50-year age, working more than 6 months, and understanding English language. Participants who had any cardiac respiratory disease, implanted pacemaker, and endocrinal disease were excluded from the study. All the participants informed the purpose of the study and consent was obtained. As this study is part of larger research project, the study procedure were approved by Institutional Ethical Committee. Starting with the outcome measurement, self-administration mode was used to measure physical activity and perceived stress. International Physical Activity short version was used to examine person's physical activity levels. This questionnaire consists of 7 questions which is related to job, everyday life, leisure, and especially time spent on vigorous and moderate activities. Weekly physical activity was computed by MET, that is metabolic equivalent, minute per week. Based on this, the subjects were classified into 3 categories: highly active, moderately active, low or inactive. PSS 10 version was used to measure perceived stress. This questionnaire consists of 10 questions with each question having alternatives, that is 0 to 4, where 0 is never, 4 is very often. Total number of score that is 40, higher the score indicating higher perceived stress. The categories are score from 0 to 13 would be low stress, 14 to 26 would be moderate stress, and 27 to 40 considered as a high perceived stress. Heart rate variability parameters were measured using Polar H10 heart rate monitor and Cubius HRV smartphone application with the use of iPhone 13 Pro Max. The application has a good reliability and excellent validity. RMSST and SDNN were examined in time domain and LFHF ratio were examined in frequency domain parameters. All recordings were made in morning between 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. in quite bright room with constant and controlled temperature. Each participants were rested in supine for 10 minutes prior to measurement. They were instructed to stay calm, breathe properly, refrain from speaking and avoid sleep during measurement. Following the 10 minutes of rest, participant chest was fastened with the Polar H10 chest strap, had been moistened with the water and at the level of sternum. And Cubios HRV smartphone application pair up with the iPhone through the Bluetooth for recording. Before the measurement, there was a 30 seconds of relaxation and total of 5 minutes were recorded. Here, the photograph of Polar H10 chest strap, which has been attached at the level of sternum. Results. Data were analyzed using SPSS version 28. Pearson's correlation was used for the correlation analysis. Level of significance was set at 0.05 and confidence range that is 95%. Table number 1 shows the demographic details of the participants. Variables are age, body mass index, sitting hours, resting heart rate, sleep hours per day, work experience, perceived stress score, RMSSD, SDNN, LFHF ratio, MAT. Table number 2 shows HRV parameters in male and table number 3 shows HRV parameters in female. Here we can see that RMSSD and SDNN values are lower in male compared to female, whereas LFHF ratio is lower in female compared to male. This graph shows the HRV parameter gender differences. So RMSSD is lower in male compared to female. SDNN is also lower in male compared to female. And LFHF ratio is lower in female compared to male. Table number 4 shows the correlation between MAT and HRV parameters, and table number 5 shows correlation between PSS and HRV parameters. Here we can see there is no correlation between MAT values and HRV parameters, whereas RMSST and SDNN found to be negative correlated with the PSS, and LFHF ratio is found to be positively correlated with PSS. Scatter diagram of PSS with RMSSD negative correlation and scatter diagram of PSS and SDNN negative correlation. LFHF ratio and PSS found to be positively correlated with each other. Table number 6 shows the correlation between age and HRV parameters. RMSSD and SDNNs are negatively correlated with the age. Age and RMSSD correlation negatively correlated, SDNN and age that is negatively correlated. Starting with the discussion, the present study found no correlation between physical activity and HRV. RMSSD and SDNN are negatively correlated with stress, while LFHF ratio is positively correlated. According to the study findings, stress and LFHF ratios are positively correlated, suggesting that when the stress level rise and increase LFHF ratios and vice versa. Sympathovagal balance is determined by LFHF ratio. Low LFHF ratio reflects parasympathetic dominance. In contrast, high LFHF ratio indicates sympathetic dominance, which happens when we are engaging in fight or flight or either parasympathetic withdrawal behavior. Tesla discovered that physical activity, cardiorespiratory fitness, and body composition are associated with HRV-based race, which is contradictory to our study result. Another conclusion from the study is that RMSST and SDNN levels decrease as the stress increases. Both values are in time domain parameters, where the SNS and PNS activity contribute to SDNN. RMSSD, that is reflecting the bit-to-bit variance in heart rate, and the primary time domain measure to used to estimate vagally mediated changes reflected in HRV. As the stress increases, parasympathetic regulation is reduced, which results in lowering RMSSD values, which are primarily impacted by PNS. Camp and colleagues conducted a meta-analysis of the effect of various HRV indices in order to determine the effect of HRV on depression. The overall result of meta-analysis showed that depression was connected to the lower high frequency HRV levels and higher LFHF ratios, which are consistent with our finding. According to the Rotenberg's review, there is a connection between decreased HRV and clinical depression, which is consistent with the theory that HRV is a marker of physiological sensitivity to the environment, reflects the organism's capacity to anticipate, respond to, and adapt to stressors and challenges. The study also found that age has a negative correlation with RMSSD and SDNN, indicating that sympathetic dominance increases with the age while parasympathetic control decreases, which is consistent with the number of earlier studies. We found that females had a higher RMSSD and SDNN values than male, as well as the lower LFHF ratio, which indicates more parasympathetic and low sympathetic control in females. In line with the previous few studies, have indicated that female sex hormones influences autonomic modulation, and estrogen has a facilitating effect on cardiac vagal function. Our finding is in agreement with the findings of Ramakers, where the author find out that decreased sympathetic activity in women compared to men may explain the protection against cardiovascular disease in women. Several prospective studies have shown that impaired HRV predicts incidence of cardiovascular disease. In our study, majority of the participants were physically inactive on self-administered IPAC with the moderate level of stress on PSS. Lack of time, home management, family responsibilities, and exhaustions were frequently cited as a barrier to physical activity. We all know that relying too heavily on technology, whether it is for transport, household work, or other tasks, decreases the daily physical activity. Furthermore, India is also expanding in technological and digital fields where long periods of inactivity are required, contributing to this trend. We found moderate level of stress, which can be attributed to workplace competitiveness, and family responsibilities, all of which are accumulating and compromising cardiac health. In conclusion, the study revealed no association between office workers' physical activity and heart rate variability. As per study result, majority of the participants were physically inactive, which is the major health concerns in office workers. To promote health and psychological benefits, people should engage in any regular physical exercise and work to eliminate sedentary behavior. Since the stress and HRV are linked, the clinical evaluation of HRV in stressed person may aid the early identification of cardiac autonomic dysfunction and strengthen the risk reduction strategies for cardiovascular disease. This study has a certain limitations. Due to certain reporting bias, the subjective assessment method of physical activity assessment and perceived stress may influence our study outcomes. Future studies, however, might make a use of tools like pedometer, accelerometer to quantify physical activity objectively. Heart rate variability is influenced by several confounding factors such as sleep, diet, hormone levels, and metabolic biomarkers, which are not assessed in the present study. However, the result of this study must be confirmed with the more robust data in larger prospective studies due to smaller sample size. These are my references. Thank you.